Does God know that you will go to hell before you are born? No? Then God is not all-knowing. Yes? Then he created you knowing beforehand you would sin and punishes you for being created the way you are, which he then uses this to try and make God unjust. Now, you've probably heard something like this because it's just a regurgitation of what's known as the Epicurean paradox. This is the atheist's way of trying to disprove God as if he knows what God ought to do and how God ought to be. It is an immediate red flag because what the atheist is doing when he says this is, I know how God ought to act. But yet that same atheist couldn't create life if they tried, let alone plan out the course of redemption for all of mankind. But they know how God ought to be if he is real. The second red flag is, this point is 100% about me, and me. Just read it. If God knew beforehand that I was going to go to hell, why let me be born? It completely dismisses the fact of God's love for everyone around you and how your lack of existence would affect everyone around you. Why would God let me exist in my rebellion? But what if God loves you so much that he gives you that freedom because he also knows your seed, your children, he will love them as well? What about your grandchildren? What about your great-grandchildren? What about the families that are born from your family that breaks off to other families? All of which come from you. What you think is an insult on God's love is a demonstration of his love and grace. God finds no pleasure in the death of the wicked. Yes, he knows who will reject him before they're born, but he loves your children, your children's children, your children's children's children. Heck, even in your life of rebellion, your actions can be used to glorify God. It says even the wicked have a purpose. Joseph's brothers, in a moment of wickedness, beat their brother out of jealousy and sold him into slavery, but that led to the preservation of Israel because then Joseph was able to provide for his family during a famine. Judas is pursuing his own selfish desires, and when he finds Jesus, he follows him not for what Christ offers, but because he wants to fill his own pockets. God allows him to do so, knowing he would betray Jesus, and then uses that to bring salvation to the world. Yes, God lets non-believers exist because whether you believe or not doesn't mean you won't glorify him. All of those that stand in rebellion against him will glorify his perfect justice. And all those that accept his grace, his love, and his offer for reconciliation will be covered in his grace so that his grace is glorified. God literally promises what the atheists request of him. I will remove sickness, war, disease, crime, and death. The reason you don't like that is because you want him to give that to you even though you've rejected him. But those that have received his love and responded with love, faith working through love, those are who he pours that out for. Let's get to the heart of the issue. What is it you're in rebellion against God for? Name one of God's commands that are a burden. Not to covet. Covet leads to depression and anxiety, a giant problem in our society. If we followed that command, we'd probably have a lot more of a healthier society, especially in our youth. Not to commit adultery? Yeah, that's a terrible one, right? Sanctity of a marriage. We don't have any statistics that tell us that single parent households destroy families, right? We don't have any evidence for that. We don't have any evidence of how the promiscuous lifestyle destroys a culture. People have STDs. People are getting violently attacked by other people. It is a dangerous culture to have a promiscuous culture. But no, God's commands, they're so burdensome. Not to steal, not to dishonor your parents, not to lie. Oh my goodness. No. You don't like the first commandment. I am God. Worship me alone. You don't like that authority commandment that I am the only God. I am the first and the last. To have no other gods before me. Because it can't be those other commandments. Those aren't the ones you're upset about, are they? And the atheists, what they hear is, follow my commandments or I'll punish you. And they try and make God unjust for that. But what I hear is, if you break these commandments, they will cause you pain and terrible suffering in your life. I want what is best for you. Sin is the edge of the cliff. And if you jump off, you will be harmed. So God puts up a guardrail. You want to jump over the guardrail and then get mad at God and say, why did you do this to me? Like, God didn't do that to you. You did that to yourself. You jumped over the guardrail. And even then, Christ says, I'll catch you. You stand in your arrogance saying, no, I never did anything wrong. I never jumped over the guardrail. So you refuse to admit you're falling. And so when you hit the ground, you're going to cry saying, where was God at? Why even let me be created? Rather than just accepting the fact that I exist, that this world was created by God, and I come into submission to him to provide for me. It's throwing a temper tantrum, and it's a terrible argument. God bless and go in peace.